So we're going to work on a pose called Baddha Konasana, bound angle pose. Some of you might know of it as butterfly pose or cobbler's pose. I want to ask Dave to straighten his legs first. Then, as we've been doing, he's going to take his hands behind his knees and then bring the soles of the feet together. He's holding onto his feet and he wants to lift his chest, but what I can see very quickly with Dave is that his knees are quite a bit higher than his hips. And that just means that the hips are a little tight, which is why we're doing this stuff. In order for him to find a little bit more release and get benefit from the pose, I'm going to ask him to sit up on a blanket a little bit higher. And again, if you at home, you can use a towel or just a regular normal old blanket. It doesn't have to be a yoga blanket. But what you can see is when he sits up, suddenly the knees are a little bit more in line with the hips, a little bit higher up, and it helps him find a little bit more freedom. Now, instead of holding onto your feet, Dave, I want to ask you to take your hands behind you on the blanket right by the hips.
Okay.
Push the hands down, lift the chest up. Good. Now, as we did before, as I asked him to do before, he's going to release from his inner groins towards the knees. He's going to lengthen the inner leg. And in fact, sort of shorten from the outer leg back to the hip. Can you feel that? It's interesting. Again, it's not just a release. You're actively doing something. Now, one of the things I'm going to talk a little bit and keep Dave in this pose because longer stays in this pose are really quite good for you. The reason they call this pose a cobbler's pose, the reason sometimes it's called cobbler's pose, is because the cobblers of India would repair the shoes, they'd put it between their feet and they'd work on the shoes. And I don't know who does this research, and I'm very glad they did it, and I'm glad I didn't have to, but apparently the cobblers of India have a lower instance of reproductive and urinary problems.
Huh.
It's very good for the reproductive organs and the organs of elimination. And again, it's very good to stay in this pose. I often say that this is a TV pose. Instead of sitting on a couch while you're watching TV, maybe take 5-10 minutes, sit on the floor in Baddha Konasana while you're watching TV instead. This is also one of the very few poses that you can do on a full stomach. Most times, most poses, you cannot do that. But if you are full, you could still get away with doing this pose without struggle. But how's it feeling? Okay?
Yeah,
it's good. Yeah, I mean, it's not. You're not going to wear yourself out. It's not intense. But if you do hang here for a while, you will you can gain some very good benefit, again, in the areas of reproduction and elimination, as well as the hips, lower back. Baddha Konasana. So the next pose we're going to work on is just a variation of the last pose, Baddha Konasana. This is going to be more of a reclining version. So if you've had a long day, this is really a nice way to do this pose. So I'm going to ask Dave to bring his soles of his feet together like you would for Baddha Konasana, as he did before. And then he's going to take this blanket, that handy blanket, the one that you have at home, that great blanket that you have at your house. You can take it, wrap it around your ankles, and pull so that the feet get a little bit closer to the hips. And then he's going to lie down. He's going to go lie down. And then he's going to pull again. Pull the blanket closer so his heels get closer to his hips. Finally, I'm going to ask Dave to just bunch up the tails of the blanket on the outer thighs a little bit for support. And then he can just release his arms with his palms up. So this is a Supta Baddha Konasana, a reclined bound angle pose. Very good for the inner groins, very good for the reproductive organs and the organs of elimination. Also just very good for calming down the lower back. If you've got some back problems and really bothered, just getting into this pose can sometimes release the lower back quite nicely. Now when Dave comes out, I want him, he's been stretching those inner groins quite a bit, and I don't want him to work those too hard, so I'm going to ask him to take his hands to his outer knees. Take your hands to your outer knees, Dave, and push the legs together with your hands so your groins don't work so hard. Good, and then he's just going to roll to his side and then come up to sitting. And this is another pose you can do. You can stay in it for quite a while. It does nothing but good things for your legs, for your hips. Supta Baddha Konasana. Was it good, Dave?
Yeah.
All right.
That's good.
Cool.